Dying alien princess revived by human blood, and became obsessed with him. The first thing Draven felt was the silence. Not peaceful silence, but a heavy, frozen stillness that pressed against his skin like ice. He sat in a sealed transport pod, wrists bound with smooth alloy cuffs. The restraints were unnecessary, but the alien race that captured him, the Aurelians, believed control was the only path to order. To them, he wasn't a man. He was a biological tool, dragged across half the galaxy for a last-chance experiment. Two tall Aurelian escorts waited as the pod doors slid open. Their slender limbs shimmered with faint gold light, their narrow eyes unblinking. They did not speak to him. They did not need to. Their body language alone said everything. "You are property." Draven stepped out, calm but alert. He wore a plain dark transport uniform. His boots clicked softly on the polished floor of the medical wing, too clean, too bright, too cold. Everything looked artificial, like life had been drained out of the air. Subject 912H, a sharp voice called. A tiny Aurelian scientist approached, her silver tendrils drawn tight against her skull. Her name was Kaelin, the lead xenologist. She looked at Draven as if he were a leaking container of chemicals. "Proceed to the diagnostic platform," she ordered. Draven said nothing. He walked where she pointed, stepping onto a circular pad surrounded by tall machines that hummed with quiet, expensive energy. A probe dropped from above and tapped the back of his neck, confirming his identity. The cold sensation spread through his spine. Behind the glass cylinder at the center of the room lay the reason he had been dragged here. Princess Lysera. Draven's breath slowed as he studied her. She was unlike any being he had ever seen, slender, delicate, almost glowing from within. Her skin carried a faint violet shine, so thin he could see the dim blue lines of her veins. Her hair, long and smooth, shimmered like liquid crystal under the lights. But most striking of all was how still she was. Lysera was dying. Her chest rose only in tiny, weak flutters. Her lips had lost all color. Her eyelids barely twitched with each fading heartbeat. The glass-born plague, a precise engineered virus, had targeted the old and fragile Aurelian genetic code. No medicine worked. No cure existed. Except possibly Draven. His disgraceful history as a former military medic, expelled for interfering in alien biology during a battlefield emergency, was the very reason the Aurelians now needed him. Humans were chaotic, biologically aggressive survivors. Their immune systems didn't bend. They fought back. Kaelin pointed at Lysera's failing vitals, her voice tight with panic. "We are initiating the infusion protocol. Your blood may be the only adaptive source capable of stabilizing her. Do not resist." Draven tore open the seam of his sleeve, revealing his exposed arm. He spoke calmly, the instinct of a medic overtaking the fear of a prisoner. "Use the radial artery. Don't numb it. If you interfere with my system, the immunity won't behave the way you expect." Kaelin hesitated. It was rare for an Aurelian to accept human advice, but Lysera's heartbeat stumbled again, sharp, violent, almost final. "Begin extraction," she barked. A thick needle slid into Draven's artery. His jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. His blood, dark, dense, and full of human stubbornness, surged into the tubes, flowing straight toward the dying princess. He felt the drain immediately. A hollow pull, like something inside him was being scooped away. He watched the crimson stream rush into Lysera's body, mixing with her fading violet life. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lysera's hand twitched. A faint shimmer passed beneath her skin. Her lips parted, drawing a long, desperate breath. The monitors jumped, lights flashing like frantic stars. Draven stared, heart pounding. He knew the truth the moment her body reacted. If she woke, she would not wake as the same princess. Because what he had given her was not just blood. It was human intensity. Human instinct. Human will to survive, no matter the cost. And whatever rose in that glass chamber would carry a part of him forever. The room held its breath. Lysera's vitals didn't simply stabilize, they spiked. The faint flutter of her heartbeat transformed into a deep, powerful rhythm that echoed through the chamber's thin walls. The soft glow beneath her skin intensified, brightening into vivid waves of violet and rose. For a moment, she looked like a dying star reignited. Then her eyes opened. They were not the gentle amethyst orbs the Aurelians were known for. They blazed, silver, sharp, alive with a wild intensity no Aurelian genome had ever carried. Draven recognized that fire. It was human. It was the unbreakable reflex to fight, to live. Lysera sat upright inside the cylinder with sudden force, shattering several delicate monitors in the process. Her hair floated around her like a shimmering halo, strands crackling with static energy. Even the air trembled from her presence. Kaelin stumbled backward, her voice trembling. How is this possible? The infusion was meant to stabilize her, not alter her. An attendant whispered, horrified, her vascular output is triple the recorded limit. The plague is dissolving itself. Her body is rewriting its own systems. Draven knew. He had seen the moment human blood met failing alien biology. He had felt it. It's not a cure, he said quietly. It's a takeover. The cylinder released a soft hiss as Lysera pushed its hatch open with one hand. The seal wasn't meant to be broken manually. Yet the metal bent under her fingers like thin plastic. She stepped out onto the cold floor, bare feet landing with surprising weight. She swayed once, too many sensations flooding in at once, then steadied herself. Her breathing was quick and deliberate, as though every inhale brought her new power. The nearest structural pillar stood beside her, built from alloy engineered for deep space durability. She brushed her palm against it. The pillar dented. Not cracked. Not scratched. Dented. Kaelin gasped, her voice cracking. Your Highness, please return to the containment field. Your system is overloaded. You require stabilization. But Lysera barely looked at her. Her silver eyes scanned the room slowly, absorbing every detail. Every machine. Every guard. Every trembling scientist. Then they found Draven. Her gaze locked onto him as if gravity itself had shifted. Still strapped to the monitoring cot, Draven felt the cold spike of recognition. She wasn't simply aware of him, she was drawn to him. As if she sensed the source of the storm roaring inside her veins. She took a step toward him. Then another. Each movement was heavy with new purpose, new instinct. Human instinct. The guard stepped forward, uncertain. Lysera didn't slow. She didn't even acknowledge them. Her entire focus narrowed on Draven, on the man whose blood now burned inside her like a second heartbeat. Kaelin, desperate, attempted one last command. Princess Lysera, cease movement. You are experiencing a violent sensory overload. Lysera didn't answer. Instead, she raised one slender hand and pointed at Kaelin. A spark, barely visible, like the crack of distant lightning, flashed from her fingertip. Kaelin's datapad exploded in her hand with a sharp cracking sound, sending fragments scattering across the polished floor. The scientist cried out and fell back. Every Aurelian in the room froze. Lysera's lips formed a slow, unfamiliar smile. Not kind. Not relieved. Predatory. She reached Draven's cot and stopped beside him. Her shadow fell over his body. Her breath was warm, rapid, carrying the faint metallic scent of accelerated metabolism. Draven forced himself to stay calm, though every instinct screamed to move. Run. Fight. Do anything except sit still under the gaze of a newly awakened apex being. Lysera leaned close, too close, until her shimmering hair brushed his shoulder. Her silver eyes searched his face, tracing every line with unreadable hunger. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was deeper now, resonant, layered with something more primal than Aurelian culture had ever allowed. "What," she whispered, "did you put inside me?" She wasn't asking for medical clarity. She wasn't confused. She was craving the answer. Draven held her gaze, refusing to shrink away. She needed strength, not fear. The Aurelians had given her stability. He had given her something else. "Life," he answered softly. "Human life." Her pupils widened, drinking in his words like they were fuel. Her breath quickened again, and a faint tremor ran through her arms, not weakness, but eagerness. "The feeling," she murmured, touching her chest. "It is loud. It is fierce. It does not bow. It does not wait. It wants more." Draven swallowed. This wasn't a recovery. It was the beginning of an obsession. And Lysera had no intention of letting her source slip away. The medical chamber emptied quickly after Lysera's display of power. No alarm sounded. No guards attempted intervention. Fear had silenced every protocol. Only two figures remained inside the vast, sterile room. The human who had given his blood, and the princess who was no longer the same species she had been minutes ago. Lysera stood over Draven as if studying a newly discovered star. Her silver irises pulsed faintly, responding to the charging rhythm of her altered body. Her breathing was fast, controlled only by the thinnest thread of discipline. She reached out and touched the metal frame of the cot. Her fingers pressed into the alloy. Not accidentally, curiously. She seemed fascinated by the resistance, the texture, the weight of the physical world she had once moved through so delicately. Now she could bend it. "Your Highness," Draven said quietly, trying to break the spell tightening around them. "You need medical review. Your system is unstable." Lysera tilted her head in a strangely human gesture. Her expression was unreadable, but her gaze sharpened at his voice. "You gave me this," she murmured. "This force. This urgency." Her hand hovered inches from his face, trembling not from weakness but from overwhelming sensation. "It feels as if the universe is pushing through my veins," she whispered. "It wants me to move. To act. To take." Her fingers brushed the line of his jaw, light as a whisper, yet charged with a strength that could crush bone effortlessly. Draven stayed still. Running would be suicide. Confrontation would be worse. He watched her, calm but alert. "You're experiencing adaptive aggression. It's a human survival instinct. It'll settle if..." Lysera cut him off, leaning closer until her forehead almost touched his. "It will not settle," she breathed. "It is becoming me." Her voice trembled with something dangerous. Something possessive. Outside, the guards formed a silent blockade in the corridor, terrified of re-entering the room. Every sensor, every monitor fed back impossible readings. Lysera's energy output didn't match Aurelian biology. Her vitals looked more like a contained explosion waiting to happen. Lysera seemed unaware, or uninterested. She slid her hand to Draven's wrist restraints. Her fingers tightened slowly. Metal groaned. With one effortless twist, she snapped the cuffs apart. The broken pieces clattered across the floor. Draven rubbed his wrists, subtly testing the space between them. He could run. He could attack. But he didn't. Lysera noticed. A faint, pleased smile curved her lips. "You understand," she said softly. "You sense the bond." "It's not a bond," Draven corrected. "It's biology. Your system is looking for the source of the change, the origin of the adaptive cascade. It thinks being close to me means safety." She stepped back, eyes narrowing. "Safety," she repeated slowly. "No. This feeling is not safety." Her silver gaze locked onto him, intense and unblinking. It is hunger. She paced the room like a predator adjusting to new muscles. Each movement was sharp but graceful, fueled by strength she had no training to control. She approached a reinforced structural beam near the wall. Without warning, she struck it with her palm. The beam dented inward with a sickening crunch. Lysera stared at her hand, fascinated, terrified, enthralled. "This would have broken me before," she whispered. "But now it bends." She turned, her expression glowing with exhilaration. "Your blood has rewritten my weakness." Draven remained silent. His heart pounded in his chest, not from fear alone but from the weight of what he had done. He hadn't simply saved her life. He had altered the future of an entire species. Lysera approached him again, slow, deliberate, and unwavering. Her hair shimmered with iridescent colors, floating as if gravity had loosened its grip. She rested her palm on his chest, directly over his heartbeat. "This rhythm," she murmured. "I feel it inside myself now. I feel it pulling me toward you." He swallowed. "That's residual sympathetic mimicry. It'll fade." "No." Her voice cut through the room like a blade. "It will not fade. I will not let it." Her fingers curled slightly, gripping his shirt. "Draven. I will not return you to a cell. The others may see you as a tool, but I do not." He forced himself to meet her gaze. "Then what do you see?" Lysera's eyes softened in a way that was far more dangerous than her strength. "I see the one who awakened me." Her next words were whispered, full of unshakable intent. "And I will not allow anything to take you away." The obsession had not only begun. It had already grown roots. The corridor outside the chamber remained silent, but tension radiated through it like a low, vibrating alarm. No one dared approach. Even the automated drones drifted back, their sensors confused by the new biological readings coming from the princess. Inside, Lysera stood with her palms still pressed over Draven's heart. Her eyes glowed faintly, responding to the beat beneath her hand. "You feel it too," she whispered. "The pull." Draven kept his breathing steady. "What you feel is chemical. Adrenaline. Neural adaptation. A shock survivor's response." Lysera's expression darkened, almost offended. "Do not reduce it to numbers." She stepped back only enough to walk a slow circle around him. Her movements were smooth, almost too fluid, as if her body no longer obeyed the old limits of balance and weight. She was testing herself, feeling the surge beneath her skin, adjusting to it like a creature newly freed from a cage. Draven watched her carefully. "You're stronger than your people ever intended to be." "Yes." She smiled, not a warm smile, but a sharp one filled with realization. "And I refuse to let anyone take this strength from me." Her silver gaze lifted to the ceiling where the broken restraints hung like useless scraps. "The Aurelians fear power that comes from chaos," she said quietly. "But I feel alive for the first time." She approached him again, stopping so close he could feel the heat radiating from her altered metabolism. Her fingers brushed the side of his neck, tracing a line pulsing with his heartbeat. "You gave me more than life," she murmured. "You gave me a new nature." Draven wasn't sure whether to feel pride or dread. Lysera exhaled slowly, letting her hand drop. "You will not stay in this medical wing," she declared. "You do not belong to them. You belong, close. To you," Draven finished, his tone steady but firm. "You're saying I belong to you." Her eyes flickered, not with guilt, but with certainty. "Yes. You are the source of what I am now. I will not be separated from you." Before he could respond, she turned sharply toward the sealed door. She didn't touch the control panel. She simply raised her hand. The air shimmered. A faint pulse of invisible energy radiated outward. The door slid open without receiving a command. Draven stared. That wasn't telekinesis. No, she said, glancing over her shoulder. It was excess energy. My body is still stabilizing. Your blood pushes everything to act. The guards outside stiffened but dared not lift their weapons. Their fear was sharp, clear, and paralyzing. Lysra gestured for Draven to follow, her tone brooking no refusal. Come. You will walk beside me. He stepped forward slowly, watching her posture, calculating his odds. Lysra didn't miss a thing. You are wondering if you could run, she said softly. Do not. Her voice dropped, warm and dangerous. I would catch you. Draven didn't answer. He walked beside her, keeping his pace even. Not defiant. Not submissive. Controlled. Lysra's lips twitched again, another small, satisfied smile. You understand balance, she murmured. You do not crave domination. You do not crumble under pressure. Your mind is as valuable as your blood. They entered the private elevator leading to the royal spire. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. The lift began to rise, glowing panels illuminating Lysra's face in shifting colors. She studied him openly. Before today, I lived carefully, she said. Following ancient rules. Wearing a crown shaped by others. Now my blood sings with purpose. With movement. With change. Her fingers brushed the railing, bending the metal slightly without noticing. This energy inside me. She lowered her voice. It demands proximity to the origin. To you. The elevator stopped at an opulent corridor lined with crystal-veined pillars and soft violet carpets. The air smelled faintly of spices reserved for royalty. Lysra stepped out first. This floor belongs to me alone, she said. Only the High Council and royal attendants are permitted entry. She turned to him, her silver eyes burning with intensity. Today, I grant access to one more. Draven met her gaze evenly. You're making a dangerous choice. Your people won't accept this. They will, she said simply. Or they will learn new fear. She led him into her private suite, a vast room of glass, stone, and elegant, cold beauty. A sweeping view of the capital sparkled beyond the windows. Lysra stopped in the center of the room and faced him fully. From this moment forward, she declared, voice ringing with new authority. You will not be a prisoner. You will be something far more important. The air shifted around them, tense, intimate, electric. You are my anchor, she said. My living connection to the power inside me. Her next words were quiet but absolute. And I will never let you go. The days that followed felt unreal, almost like time itself had changed its rhythm to match the accelerated pace of Lysra's new biology. Draven was no longer escorted by guards. No longer monitored in a cell. No longer spoken to as a specimen. Instead, he was kept in Lysra's private quarters, always within reach, always under her watchful silver gaze. The Aurelians obeyed her commands with trembling reverence. No one questioned why a human now lived beside their princess. They feared the answer. Lysra herself changed by the hour. The delicate being Draven first met was gone. Her new body carried strength in every line, every movement. But it wasn't brute force that unsettled the court, it was the intensity behind her eyes. The constant awareness. The relentless focus. And that focus was always on him. You will train with me, she announced one morning, standing at the entrance to a hidden chamber above the palace. Your biology lives inside me. I must understand its patterns. The training dome was vast, circular, with a transparent ceiling that revealed the drifting clouds above. Aurelian royalty had used it for ceremonial dance, not combat. Lysra had other plans. She stepped onto the smooth floor, wearing a fitted dark training suit similar to Draven's. The suit clung to her new musculature, highlighting a form built not for grace but for calculated violence. Show me how humans fight, she said. Draven hesitated. Your Highness, combat training isn't a game. Your body is still stabilizing. You could. Draven. His name left her lips with a weight that stopped him mid-sentence. You cannot break what you created. She took a stance she had watched him practice earlier, imperfect, but focused. Draven sighed quietly and lifted his hands. All right. But we start slow. Lysra lunged. There was nothing slow about it. She moved with blinding speed, faster than her slender frame should allow. Draven barely managed to raise his arm before her strike collided with him like a kinetic blast. The impact sent him sliding backward across the floor. He gritted his teeth and steadied himself. You call that slow? Lysra paused, breathing hard. No, she admitted. It is what my blood demands. They began again. This time Draven adapted quickly, anticipating her reckless rush. Humans, after all, were born from instinct honed on a dangerous world. He dodged, pivoted, and redirected her strikes with controlled precision. Lysra absorbed every movement, every angle. Her learning speed was terrifying. Within minutes, she adjusted her stance. Within an hour, she began predicting his counters. By the second hour, she was matching him. Draven felt sweat gather along his spine. She didn't tire. Her metabolism burned like a storm. She struck with a perfect balance of elegance and raw aggression, Aurelian refinement fused with human instinct. Finally, during a brief pause, she cornered him. Her arm pressed across his chest, pinning him lightly to a support pillar. You fight with structure, she murmured, her breath warm against his neck. You adapt with thought. You restrain your power. Her fingers slid down his arm, tracing the outline of muscle and bone. My people never understood this kind of control. They suppressed their instincts. But your biology, your mind. Her eyes gleamed with a strange hunger. It gives me purpose. Draven's heartbeat quickened. Lysra's pupils widened. There it is, she whispered. The rhythm I feel inside myself. The rhythm of the source. She stepped back suddenly, excitement radiating from her like heat. Again, she commanded. I want more. I want to shape this strength. I want to use what you are. Draven repositioned himself, trying to ignore the quiet storm building behind her words. Use it for what? He asked. Lysra turned toward the ceiling where faint projections appeared, fleet movements, territorial borders, tension lines across the Aurelian Empire. For survival, she said simply. For dominance. Her silver eyes glowed with a fierce, unsettling clarity. My enemies poisoned me because I was weak. Predictable. Gentle. That version of me is dead. She looked at him with a confidence that felt ancient and new all at once. You gave me a weapon. A human weapon. Draven felt a chill crawl up his spine. No, he said softly. I didn't give you a weapon. I gave you a chance to live. Lysra approached him again, slower this time, more controlled. Her hand rested over his heart, grounding herself in the pulse she now mirrored. And life, she whispered, is the most dangerous weapon of all. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a soft, addictive command. Teach me everything your species knows about surviving war. Her meaning was unmistakable. She wasn't asking for knowledge. She was preparing to reshape the galaxy with it. Lysra's transformation did not stay a secret. No matter how tightly the royal spire guarded its doors, rumors flooded through the palace like cracks in old glass. Some whispered that the princess had risen from death. Others whispered she was no longer Aurelian at all. But one truth spread fastest. She was powerful in a way their species had long abandoned. And the High Circle, those ancient rulers who clung to tradition like a shield, could not tolerate that. Deep in a hidden medical sector beneath the palace, 3 xenologists gathered around flickering holoscreens. Their robes shimmered with the sigil of the old order. Their faces were tight with fear and resolve. At the center stood Elder Valen, Lysera's former genetic advisor, now trembling before his own data. She is unstable, he whispered. Her body is trying to process two forms of biological logic. Human aggression fused with Aurelian refinement. It will tear our society apart. A younger scientist shook her head, voice barely above a breath. No. It will tear us apart. The people already sense her shift. They feel a ruler who does not follow the old calm. They are drawn to her strength. Valen's eyes hardened. Which is why she must be corrected. The serum is ready. He lifted a small crystalline injector. Inside, a pale blue liquid pulsed slowly, a compound engineered to neutralize foreign adaptive cells. To erase the human imprint. To erase Draven's contribution entirely. If we return her body to its stable form, he said, she will become calm again. Controlled. Predictable. The Empire will survive. But if she resists, a third scientist whispered. Then we do what must be done, Valen replied. For the good of our people. Up in the royal spire, Lysera sat beside a floating tactical display. Lines of enemy movement scattered like threads across a nebula-shaped map. She processed each one with rapid precision, her mind racing faster than any Aurelian could follow. Draven stood beside her, one hand resting lightly on the console. He was the only one allowed close, physically or emotionally. Their proximity had become a necessity, not a choice. You're anticipating multiple attacks at once, Draven observed. That's more human than Aurelian. Lysera didn't look away from the map. My people thrived on patience. But patience invites predators. The moment I became still, the directorate struck. Her voice grew quiet. And my own counsel followed. Draven's attention snapped toward her. You think the High Circle is plotting something? I feel it, she said simply. Their silence tastes wrong. Draven frowned. Human instinct again. No. She finally turned to him. This is something deeper. Before he could respond, the chamber lights dimmed. Only for a moment. Just long enough for Draven to sense movement from the far wall. Lysera sensed it too. Her head snapped toward the door an instant before it slid open without authorization. 3 figures rushed inside, cloaked in medical armor. Their faces were pale, their hands shaking, but they surged forward with purpose. Princess Lysera, Valen called, voice trembling, you must submit to a genetic correction. For the safety of the Empire. Lysera stood so slowly that the invaders faltered. Her silver eyes narrowed, reflecting a cold, rising fury. You dare enter my chambers without command? Valen lifted the injector. This will return you to who you were meant to be. Lysera's voice dropped into something deadly. I was meant to die. The scientists hesitated, fear paralyzing them for a heartbeat too long. Then they lunged. Draven moved instantly, not away, but toward Lysera, instinctively placing himself between her and the injectors. But Lysera didn't need protection. In the span of a single breath, she blurred into motion, more speed than any Aurelian or human should have possessed. She seized the nearest attacker by the wrist. Bones cracked with a sharp snap. The injector fell. She kicked it across the room with enough force to embed it in the far wall. Valen tried to speak, panic taking hold. Why, Your Highness, please. Lysera didn't listen. She twisted the second attacker's shoulder, forcing him to the floor with an impossible combination of precision and strength. When Valen raised the remaining injector, his hand shaking violently, Lysera's gaze locked onto him with cold clarity. You fear what I have become, she said. But you should fear what you tried to take from me. She flicked her wrist. A pulse of energy burst from her palm. Valen was thrown backward, crashing into a crystalline pillar that shattered around him like ice. Silence followed, heavy and absolute. Draven exhaled slowly. Lysera stood in the center of the wreckage, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. Her hands shook, not from weakness, but from the overload of instinct and adrenaline. She turned to Draven, her voice low. You see. They will not let me live as I am. Draven stepped closer, steady and unafraid. And what do you want? Lysera reached out, touching his shoulder with trembling fingers. I want to survive, she whispered. And the only way to survive their fear, is to make them fear me more. She leaned in, her silver eyes glowing with unshakable conviction. And you, Draven, will help me change everything. The rebellion had begun, not from the people, but from the throne itself. The entire palace trembled. Not from weapons. Not from enemy fleets. But from the shift, an unseen change rolling through the halls like a pressure wave. Servants felt it in their bones. Guards felt it tighten their throats. Scholars felt ancient instinct wake from centuries of suppression. Princess Lysera was no longer simply a ruler. She was a force. The failed attempt to suppress her had torn away the last mask of restraint she once carried. There was no more pretending she fit within the quiet rules of Aurelian diplomacy. No more bowing to a system built on fear of disruption. Now she was the disruption. In her high command chamber, deep above the city, Lysera stood before the panoramic window. The capital skyline shimmered with pale blue light, unaware that history was tilting beneath them. Draven entered cautiously, his steps quiet against the polished floor. You sent for me, he said. Lysera turned. She wore no ceremonial robes, no crown. Instead, she stood in a fitted mantle of dark crystalline fabric that responded to her movements like a second skin, regal, but ready for war. Her silver eyes studied him with a combination of trust and something far deeper. The high circle has fractured, she said. Those loyal to the old blood will scatter. Those loyal to strength will rally. Draven nodded slowly. Your people are afraid. They're not used to a leader who acts before asking permission. Aurelian leaders sought harmony, Lysera said, her voice quiet. But harmony without power is merely an invitation for conquest. She stepped toward him, each movement controlled, deliberate. The directorate struck because they believed we were predictable. Weak. Gentle. Her gaze sharpened. I am none of those things now. Draven met her eyes, calm despite the intensity radiating from her. Your strength won us the battle. But strength alone can't win peace. Lysera approached him until she was close enough to feel his breath. That is why I need you, she whispered. Not for your blood. Not anymore. Her fingers brushed his jawline, brief, electric. But for your mind. For the first time since her transformation, Draven heard something new beneath her words. Not hunger. Not instinct. Conviction. A deep, powerful clarity. What are you planning? He asked. She lifted her hand and activated the central holomap. The entire galaxy appeared in swirling bands of light, Aurelian domains, directorate territories, neutral zones. Aurelia will no longer hide behind treaties, she said. We will redefine the balance of power. Draven frowned. Through aggression? No. She turned to him with a faint, dangerous smile. Through unpredictability. Human strategy. Aurelian precision. And something new, something uniquely hers. The Council will call this madness, Draven warned. They will call it evolution, Lysera corrected. Because they will have no choice. Suddenly the room lights dimmed. The palace AI chimed softly. Alert, civil divisions detected within the council chambers. Multiple factions mobilizing. Lysera's head tilted, listening not with her ears, but with the heightened senses her hybrid biology granted her. They are choosing sides, she murmured. Good. Draven stepped closer, tension tightening his shoulders. If this becomes civil war. It won't, Lysra interrupted. Not if the people see the truth. And what truth is that? Lysra turned fully toward him. That Aurelia has survived for centuries by stifling its evolution. The future demands something different. Something stronger. She raised her hand and clasped Draven's forearm, a warrior's grip, firm and anchoring. You opened that future for me, she said. Now I must open it for all of them. A deep hum echoed through the spire as the palace shields activated, an automatic response to unrest. The lights along the windows brightened, casting Lysra in a silhouette of violet flame. Outside, crowds began gathering in the lower plazas, drawn by instinct they did not understand. They didn't know why, but they felt her rise. Lysra turned back to the window, her voice steady and resonant. They will look for a queen. Not a symbol. Not a diplomat. A sovereign who can protect them. She glanced over her shoulder at Draven. And I will not stand alone. Draven inhaled slowly. What are you asking of me? Lysra approached him with a calm certainty that left no room for doubt. To stand at my side, she said. Not as a source. Not as a prisoner. As a partner to a new dynasty. Her silver gaze locked onto his. As the one who helped create the new blood sovereignty. The words hung in the air between them, heavy, final, world-altering. Draven held her stare. He didn't agree out of fear. He didn't flinch from the weight of what she was offering. He simply nodded, once. Lysra exhaled, a slow release of tension she rarely showed. Then she turned toward the balcony overlooking the capital. The palace doors parted automatically as she stepped forward. The city fell into complete silence at the sight of her, glowing with power, standing tall with unshakable resolve, Draven at her side. Lysra raised her voice, amplified not by technology but by the sheer authority resonating inside her. Aurelia has entered a new age. I rise not as the last princess of a weakening line. But as the first sovereign of a stronger people. Follow me, and we will redefine what our future can be. The crowd erupted, not in fear, but in fierce, rising belief. Draven watched her, knowing the truth. She was no longer the fragile royal he'd been brought to save. She was no longer bound by Aurelian limits or human instability. Lysra had become something else. Something powerful, unpredictable, and unstoppable. And the galaxy would never be the same.